Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the final battle stratagem video. And the last codex in question is the Black Templars. Remember, this is a video series in which I give you a generalistic universal look / approach to dealing with whatever codex in question I'm talking about in a particular video. Pretty much helping you better achieve victory, giving you the best possible chance on top of your own tactics and own army lists. It's meant to be a universal generalistic look, so any codex and any army list from any codex can take what I say and use it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the ride, and here we go with the last one. So Black Templars, they're a Space Marine army, but they kind of break the mold a little bit. They can field a lot of Marines on the battlefield, in a way. And I'll talk about that in a second. I want to talk about two things first: their vehicles and the Emperor's Champion. Firstly, their vehicles. Standard anti-vehicle tactics apply. The Imperial vehicles, they don't have much in terms of survivability, and I don't mean that they don't survive well. They don't have any special rules negating anything, with the exception of the Blessed Hull upgrade, which I believe is for the Land Raider Crusader only. What this does is it negates the Lance special rule. So any weapons with the Lance rule doesn't get what the special ability of the Lance, just using normal strength and stuff like that. So that can make the Land Raider Crusader more survivable. I know, the Eldar armies in general kind of rely on lances for anti-tank, so that kind of really ups the ante in terms of survivability against them. But anyway, that's all I want to say about the vehicles. And also, the Land Raider Crusader can be taken as a transport option for a few squads, one of them being their troop choice. So you could see a decent amount of Land Raider Crusaders on the field, and barring that, even if it's just 1 to 2, they can still have 3 heavy support options slots open for whatever they want on top of that. So that's pretty good. Don't know if you heard that random noise. I don't know what that was. But anyway, up next, Emperor's Champion. Now, I did a codex in-depth for the Black Templar, so I'm not really going to go too in-depth on him or what his abilities and whatnot. But on top of him being a pretty good close combat unit, or close combat model, he also gives the army a vow. And I'm not going to go over all the vows, but one of the vows in question is gives the army, mostly using the army, preferred enemy. So the Black Templars being a close combat oriented type of army, that of course will greatly benefit them and be a problem for you. So let's go to the army proper. The Black Templars are a close combat oriented army. When they take casualties, they make a leadership check at the end of the shooting phase, as if it was a 25% casualty check, but they do it and if they take even 1 casualty, they'll do it. So what happens is, if they pass it, they surge forward d6 inches instead of falling back if they fail. If they fail, they fall back, but they show no fear, so they'll automatically regroup and all that jazz. But the point is, they will surge forward and be an assault army that helps them obviously get to you. They also are fearless in close combat, which some people don't like the new fearless. They kind of are hesitant around it, afraid of it. But that's great. Once they get stuck in, they're not going anywhere unless they're dead. It fits the theme of them very well, and it can be a problem for you, especially if you're gonna have a hard time. If you beat them by 1, let's say, it's just 1 armor save they have to make. They're not gonna fall back and have to deal with that. They're gonna hold their ground, which can really be a problem for you. Other than that, standard Space Marine as far as stat line and stuff goes. Their troop choice is different. Their troop choice combines both essentially a tactical Marine and a scout. You can have both mixed armor in the squad, so it can be a squad of up to 20 men, 10 Space Marines and 10 scouts. This is how the Black Templars kind of bring a lot of bodies to the field. They can kind of hoard it as a Space Marine, and that's kind of scary against certain armies. That's a lot of Marines to deal with, more so than you may be used to dealing with against other Marine armies. So whether it be the mixed armor squad of their troop choice or the other squads in the army, I'm going to go through the shooting and then the assault phase with dealing with Black Templars. If you're shooting heavy armor army, or even if you're not, you should not rely on, but you should definitely utilize your shooting phases. This is going to help you dwindle their numbers before they get close to you and get to grips with you. Against these guys, the longer range weapons, the better, I would say, especially if you're not good in the assault, Tau, for example. Anti-marine tactics apply here, just like they do against any marine army. Any weapon that bypasses their armor, any weapon that's high enough strength to really make it wounding them easily will help you here. The Black Templars are going to be an aggressive list. Whether or not, even if they're not mechanized, they're going to be coming at you just like other Space Marines. They'll be breaking cover pretty often to get to grips with you. So, firstly, of course, pop any dedicated transports, any transports in general, and utilize anti-marine tactics on the Marines once they're out, especially if they're in the open. Let's see. One thing I would say that kind of changes as far as anti-marine tactics against Black Templars is don't quote-unquote plink the army. Don't do a wound in one squad, then another wound, another squad, and another squad with 2 wounds. Reason for this being, each squad that takes a wound, there are a few exceptions that I go over in Codex in-depth, Black Templars, but for the most part, each squad that takes a wound in the shooting phase makes a leadership check, and if they pass it, surges forward. And I'd rather have 1 squad or 2 squads surge forward than 5, for example. So sometimes there are no other targets in line of sight for certain shootings, or other things are out of range. You can tell before you try and shoot them. But for the most part, if you can concentrate fire on a big squad, now don't get fixated, mind you, but concentrate some firepower, that may help you. Also, don't get fixated and scared by all like the Marines on the field. Don't forget about the armored support, or the land speeders, or their bikes, and things of that nature. Because while you're focusing on, let's say, the 1 or 2 20-man squads that they have to, or even just a 1 big man squad, or on the few small squads that have of 10 or whatever, the rest of the army can be shelling you from a distance and really causing havoc. So of course you gotta pick your target priorities carefully, just like you would against any army. But basically in the shooting phase, anti-marine tactics apply. Now against the troop choice, which is very big, suppression of firepower, the maximizing your firepower against the army, lots of weapons, saturation. That thing can work pretty well, considering the scouts have a 4+ armor save, so they have a better chance of failing. And being a big squad, if they're going to surge forward, you might as well do as much casualties as possible. Again, saturation of firepower is not ideal against Marines, but it can help lend some weight when you're dealing with the potentially bigger squads. Now, I'm not saying every army field of Black Templars feels a gigantic squad of Marines. It's not true, but I'm just telling you what you could face and the potentiality, if you will, of that. So the assault phase. The Black Templars are an assault-oriented list. They surge forward, they are fearless in close combat, they have the preferred enemy val potentially, which is what most people take with the Emperor's Champion these days. What do you do? Well, firstly, of course, if you're an assault army, assault-oriented, assault specialist stuff, of course assault the enemy. Don't be afraid to assault them just because, oh, they're Space Marines and they're assault geared. Don't be afraid. Of course, bring and your best foot forward and utilize all your abilities before assaulting them. Don't just throw yourself into a fresh squad. But if you're assault oriented, of course assault, don't hold back. With the exception, aside from tactical squads and Chaos Space Marine squads and equivalent squads like that, if you have a squad that can kind of assault and kind of shoot, keep it back and shoot and assault only if the squad you're facing is really small or if it's absolutely necessary. The reason I say this is squads that can kind of fill both roles usually don't do well against armies, especially if the squad is assault oriented. So a squad that's kind of like a generic squad versus an assault oriented squad, in the assault usually is at a disadvantage. So you want to definitely level the playing field in terms of dwindling their numbers and assaulting only when necessary with those type of squads. In the assault phase, against Black Templars and any Space Marine, anti-marine tactics here apply. Your power weapons, your power fists, poison weapons will help you here too. Anything to help you get wounds that either negate their armor save or saturate them with wounds here as well. Really, negating armor saves your best option, but if you can't, then if you can get a lot of high strength hits in or poison hits in, that will help as well. One thing to keep of note for armies like the Eldar and Dark Eldar and things like that, your high initiative is another thing. If you have a squad that has high initiative, use them against Space Marines in general and in this case the Black Templars. Assault them with your Howling Banshees, for example. I don't want to get too specific, but I just want to give some examples there. The reason being, usually the squads that have high initiative like that in those particular armies and some other armies that have similar squad types, they don't have the greatest strength or toughness usually, or they kind of lack something else to help with the extra punch. But you know your armies, you know what combos you can throw into them, and having a high initiative will help. Going first, getting those hits in, can really help in dealing with the return hits. And if you can wipe the squad out before it hits you, all the better. Again, you know your armies and your ability to do that. One way of doing that is, of course, dwindling their numbers before they get into assault range. So that's the shooting phase and the assault phase. You're dealing with Black Templars. This all depends, of course, on the army you're facing, but keep in mind the Emperor's Champion will always be there in an army list of 750 points or more. So in most games people play, the Emperor's Champion has to be there. It's required by their Black Templars Codex. So keep in mind which Val they have, keep in mind whether the Emperor's Champion is. He's not an all-consuming, all-powerful close combat guy, but he is pretty good. Strength 6 power weapon skill 6, I believe. Artificer armor with a 4+ invuln save in close combat, so he's not a slouch. He's essentially a super hyped up company veteran. So keep that in mind. Other than that, there's not too much to say about the Black Templars specifically. One thing I will mention that can kind of help, and also something to think about, is the Black Templars Codex does not have Devastator squads, and it does not have a Whirlwind, if I remember correctly. Which means they lack on certain fire support there. They don't have the Devastator squad fire support, which is a really big fire support for Space Marines, both in terms of survivability and the amount of weapons they can bring. And they don't have the Whirlwind, which is pretty good at dealing with hordes. To make up for that, they can have Landry Crusaders as transports, like I said, and they can still have the Vindicators and the Predators and the Lance Spears and stuff like that. But they don't have Devastator squads or Whirlwinds, so that is something to keep in mind. Not that you're going to know what they're building as far as list building goes, but if you're worried about, let's say you're facing a brand new opponent, never seen before, never seen his list before, but you know something about the Black Templars, you know A, they're assaulting, and B, the Emperor's Champion has to be there, and C, they lack Devastator squads and Whirlwinds, so you can kind of build tactics immediately from those knowledges, or those knowings, whatever the term is. But anyway, that's pretty much it for Black Templars. I hope you've enjoyed the ride of Battle Stratagem. Hope you were able to gain some insight, even if you're a battle veteran of countless games. It always helps to get somebody's perspective, which may be different from yours and probably will be different from yours on certain things. And if you're a novice, best of luck to you. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to PM me. There are other great sites out there and other channels out there. I'll be more than happy to give you a list of those in a PM. It's just easier to do it in a PM than in a comment. But also leave questions in the comment if you want to. Other watchers may answer it for you before I do, and I'll try to get back to you as swiftly as I can. And whenever a new codex comes out that replaces an older one, I will update the Battle Stratagem video for that particular codex. But until then, this video series is pretty much done. So until whatever video I do next, take it easy.